there and good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. And this session that we're bringing to you now is always great because it gives us a little bit of insight into the kind of trends within the print and inkjet markets. And I'm very pleased to have with me Dorinda Gibbons. Good afternoon, Dorinda.
Good afternoon, Fraser. Lovely to see you as always.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's really good to have you with us. Now, Dorinda, just for anyone who doesn't know you, give us a quick who you are, and I was going to say give us your profile, but that's the company. So kind of give us the story about Dorinda Gibbons, what you do, and a little bit of your experience, just to give us a flavour of who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Fraser. And that's perhaps a good strapline to say give us your profile, because then people might remember the company name as well. So that's great. So I'm Dorinda Gibbons. I'm the owner of Profile Recruitment. And I specialise in recruiting for digital inkjet companies. So a lot of the manufacturers of the printing presses, it can be of the inks, of the technology. So I work with a lot of companies across the UK, Europe, and also the USA. Hopefully we'll get to Printing United later on in the year, Fraser. I think you're booked to go on.
Fingers crossed, yes. We're hoping.
Yeah, so basically I've had my own business for 3 years, but been recruiting for 20 years, probably about 15 in the print and packaging sector that sort of naturally migrated into digital and digital printing.
Sure. And that really gives you a really good handle, I guess, on not only the kind of the trends, because obviously you'll hear companies that are starting to recruit and what kind of people they're looking for. And that's kind of one of the things we want to pick up on today. But also you're really good at giving people a bit of guidance in terms of if they are looking to recruit, or if as a candidate they're looking for a new role, or they want to develop a little bit, into a different area. You give a lot of insight into that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think during the pandemic, I know a lot of people have helped during the pandemic in their own way, be it volunteering or helping people in the local community. But I think where I've helped the most is speaking to a lot of people, a lot of candidates, and just helping them on their journey to get a new job. So it might be where I'm directly getting paid for this, but I think what comes around goes around in life. And there's been a lot of people who have suddenly been faced with redundancy. And it's a really scary time, especially if someone's had a job for 30 years or something. So it's just bringing them up to speed on what the recruitment world is like there and what they need to do to get a job, things like LinkedIn or doing their CV or how to position themselves correctly. So I know I've helped a lot of people, but I hope we can maybe have helped other people that I don't know about, and any way we can all help each other is important.
Yeah, on that note, obviously we've been through the COVID crisis, and within certain industries like hospitality, obviously they've been really hit quite hard. Within the sort of inkjet and digital print markets, have there been many redundancies? What's occurred? What's happened?
I think in commercial print, yes, there definitely has been redundancies, and it's really sad to see. And like I say, some people genuinely that have been there for 30 years or something have found themselves being culled, and it's through no fault of their own. It's just the company all of a sudden, and other companies are, depending what print sector they're on, some of their main customers, it can have a knock-on effect that they might have had one of the customers in hospitality, one in travel, one in hotels, and the company's gone under. So, and they didn't nobody saw this fully coming. So it has affected people like that as well. Yes, definitely. In digital inkjet, not quite as much, and especially with labels and packaging, I think they are fortunate that they have continued to grow and develop, because we all need those services really.
And that market's been quite good, hasn't it? Generally, obviously, a lot of people buying things from home, Amazon boxes. So the whole kind of label thing is quite big. The other side I'm always interested in, because obviously that's an area we're kind of focused on, is that sort of industrial inkjet, use of inkjet technology in industrial applications. And a lot of the major players in that segment, in terms of heads and software and inks, they've been using this time actually to do quite a lot of R&D and quite a lot of development. So it seems that what you're seeing is actually, growth growth, to be honest with you. It's as though they've used this as time to think and time to work out where the business is going. Do you sense that?
Definitely a lot of companies have really been digging deep and looking at that technology and building on that as well, and looking at, it could be their technology, it could be their any electronics, it could be their inks. I think there has been some of these electronic companies and software companies, they have been doing phenomenally well. It's just sometimes the supply chain's been a bit difficult, hasn't it, for some of these companies. But definitely with regards to recruitment, yes, they are investing in that area. And you can see some of these companies have really started to sell some products now and increasing and need more and more people, which is good.
No, that is good. And as you said yourself earlier, I'm seeing Meteor and Domino, a number of companies kind of putting up kind of adverts or mentioning their recruiting on LinkedIn. And that's good for the industry, really, isn't it? To see that, there are roles and new roles out there. Absolutely.
And they're both companies that you mentioned, those companies that really genuinely look after their staff, which is good. That's the key. You do sort of think about some companies, you wonder, have they got like a leaky bucket? So they're looking to recruit, but people are falling out the other end. It's kind of just water cascading through. It's so important at the moment not to be just on a recruitment drive, but to be looking after your existing people, because without the right people in the business, people are not going to succeed and their competition are going to do better than them, because they might sell the product, but the service might be rubbish. They might not use them again. So I think it's so important to think about both sides of that as well.
Sure, and it's roles as well, isn't it? Sometimes you see technicians being recruited. I know that, as we said, Meteor, they're doing recruitment for technicians. And then you see other companies like, GIS, and they're looking for marketing people. There's kind of a range of vacancies that are coming up.
Yes. Yeah, you do. And I think you've got through roles with expansion. A lot of these roles can be through expansion just because they're busy and they need additional people. I'm just saying, make sure that once you have recruited these people, that you get them on board correctly and that you look after them as well.
Sure. I completely agree. The interview process, tell us a little bit about that, how that's kind of changed. Has the impact of things like Zoom like this and like Teams, has that impacted on recruitment because of sort of face-to-face? It's been very difficult to do. Did you lose me there?
Yeah, I think the Teams interview, virtual interviews, is positive and negative. So it's positive in that, if you've got somebody who's a good, strong candidate that you want to interview that's in work, in the past, it's been difficult to interview that person because they've had to take time off, but they might be too busy, they might not be able to. But you can actually fit in, if they're working from home, they can do a Teams interview before work, during their lunch, or perhaps after work. So it works well with that. But the negatives are, there can be technology issues. Sometimes I've got a candidate and they're like, I can't get into my interview, I can't get on the link. And that can really, especially if you're not used to interviews, you can be very nervous then because you'll feel you're late for the interview. So there can be technology issues. But also, adversely, it can actually prolong the interview process. I've known companies where they've had a first Teams, then a week after, second Teams with someone else, the week after, a third, fourth, to the point when they've gone to offer this candidate, they've been offered a role with another company because it's taken too long. It's spanned over. And I've seen this quite a lot this year. And I think there's a lot of jobs, which is brilliant. There's a lot of candidates looking for jobs. So you think, oh, great, you can have a matchmaking service. But the reality is a shortage of talent. So when you find that right person, you really, really need to act quickly. It's like sort of like a date analogy. If your son, say, for example, had been single for a long time, and he went on a date and he said, this woman's perfect. She likes golf like I do. We're both vegan. We live nearby. We really, really get on. And you say, oh, so you're going to see her again? And he says, no, I'm just going to see other people. And you think, but why would you do that? And I see that with companies. They really like somebody. They think perfect fit. But then they think, well, I need to see somebody else. The interview goes on a couple of weeks, and then they say, no, I really like that person. I'm going to offer them. And that person's gone.
So is your advice to recruiting companies to not dawdle, not to kind of hang about? If you find 100%. The right person and you're 95% sure that this is the right person, then that's the right person.
You really need to act, because that person won't be hanging around, and they'll have other people interested in them and they will get offered a job. I mean, I'm not saying if you don't feel that person's right, definitely don't recruit them. If you've got hesitations, if you get feeling this person's not right for me, they've not got the right skills, don't just recruit them because you need that role filling, because that's even worse. And the cost of recruiting the wrong person can cost the company a lot of money. But when you find that person, don't wait, act and move forward. Try and get your recruitment process in place that you can move through that process quicker and get that person on board. Because I've seen it a couple of times recently, and it's just so heartbreaking. They'll come back weeks later and want to offer that person, and it's just too late.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about the sort of roles that are cropping up. I mean, obviously we're interested to know whether they're super technical, and if they are technical, what kind of technical roles are kind of cropping up at the moment?
I think before, because we talked before about how through COVID over the last year at large, I found at the beginning there was a lot of technical roles, and I kind of wasn't really recruiting as many commercial roles. But now it's both, which is people are looking for commercial roles as well. But you do find a lot of companies are looking for the same people in a small pool. So it's good to perhaps open that out a bit and try and look at the skills and the right person. But a lot of it can particularly be concentrating around manufacturers within the label market, be it label printers, label consumables. The label market is a really buoyant market. So I think that's an area where I'm doing a lot of recruitment at the moment. But to me, I think it's always better to get the right person with the core skills, someone you can trust, that's going to work hard, has got a proven track record of getting results, and bolt on additional skills. As long as they're from the industry at large, I feel that's a better way, rather than just getting somebody who's got that exact A to A match, because there's a small pool of those people.
Yeah, and just let's take that as an example. You mentioned labels. So what type of role, are they someone who technically has worked on machinery, or is it development of inks? Is it, what kind of things are we talking about here?
I think particularly people are looking for people who are selling label presses. Go out there on a global basis, go and selling machinery. So they could be one area that we can be looking at, but it can also be chemists, technicians, other areas as well. But I think particularly, on the sales side, because I think in technical roles, people are a little bit more open, aren't they? But I think in sales, people want that person to jump in and do that job now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, with a sales role, you would expect, as you said, that it's easier for someone to transfer from one, not technology, but if you've been working for one company to work for another, because selling is selling. Whereas technical R&D, you probably need to have that kind of professional knowledge from that, from that particular area of expertise. So as you said, a good commercial director of a company that's sold technology in labels could also transfer into a commercial director at another company selling another form of technology. So you're right in what you're saying. So you kind of feel that, particularly in that area, you can, mix and match a bit.
You can, but actually, conversely, a lot of people don't mind if it's a technical role if someone's not done exactly that. It's the sales, they want people who... interesting. They really want that industry knowledge. And I think that they've got to understand that there's a very short pool. So, and also there's that reluctance a little bit for someone to leave, because even though COVID, hopefully we're going to move past it, there is still that hesitation. If you've been in a job for 10 years, people think, should I leave now? Because then I'm going to be the last one in and I could be the first one out. So even if there's people who could do that job, that doesn't mean they're going to leave at the moment as well.
Fair comment. Let's talk about that. Let's pick up on that, Dorinda, because I think that's an interesting subject. It's obviously a challenging time for everyone. Business is difficult. People are coming back. They might be kind of working from home and working from sort of office, so hybrid working practices. Do you sense that people are nervous to move because we've come out of, we're kind of in this situation which has been challenging? Do you think, and does that mean there's a shortage of people moving? I mean, how's the impact?
There is definitely a shortage. There's a shortage of good talent and people are reluctant to leave. And I think the interview process is key. I've had an example recently where The interview process, obviously, I can help as much as a company wants me to help them with the interview process. So some people want me to manage every step of the process. Others want to just do it themselves and me to introduce them to the candidate. And whatever the client wants, I'm there to work with them. But I've had one case recently where they had a difficult to fill role. They spoke to the candidate. The candidate was a bit unsure because actually the salary was less than they're on. But they spoke to the client. I advised them to speak to the client directly. The client really got on board with them, worked alongside them and explained that overall they can earn a better package. And they loved the company, they loved the team, and they loved how they invested in the recruitment process. And they are joining that company now. It's not just about the salary, it's how they feel in that process. I mean, I think if you were going for a job, Fraser, and you were just going to apply for a job, would you apply for a job where your CV is going to go into a portal where you may or may not hear back? Or would you prefer to speak to somebody? And I think
you're right there. That particularly at the level you're talking about, Dorinda, I don't think people are. The idea of just kind of having to keep registering online for something and then just hoping that it hits. The service you provide, which actually means that if I talk to you about a vacancy, you will go and make the things happen. That's what we want at this sort of level, isn't it? So I completely get that. I guess it's the point you were just making, which was interesting, was that it's also the whole package now, isn't it? It's the whole package. And I'm not talking about sort of benefits. I'm talking about the whole package, meaning the job, the people, the kind of environment, the development. And that, do you sense that's kind of more and more important?
Absolutely, but it is really the interview process as well. And I think some of the companies I work with, they class themselves as being very innovative, very disruptive technology. It's the best technology out there. But actually, you need to be like that. You need to be different and disruptive with your interview process. You need to be offering a different service when you're trying to attract these people. I went to Cambridge Network a while ago. It was before COVID. And one stood up and talked about her interview experience. And she'd been courted by this company. She'd had a telephone call, then she'd had a Teams call, then she'd been taken out for lunch. She joined that company because of the interview process, because they courted her, they wanted her. And she's doing amazingly with them. But, if you want to get the best people, if you want to succeed, you have to have the right people in place in order to do the best job. In
effect, that's a bit like a sort of headhunt there, isn't it? They've gone directly to the individual that they wanted, and that's interesting. And that's basically, I guess that means there's a narrow pool of the people that are relevant, perhaps, as you said yourself, and therefore, if this industry is like that, isn't it? We've got out obviously the Tech Fest happening, and we're doing a recording tomorrow. We'll have 30 people from the industry together. There'll be they're competitive, i.e., it'll be companies that are competing, but they'll be chatting with each other and talking about strategy and thinking about, what they're doing, including recruitment. So I think that's interesting that, there's the closeness, isn't there, in terms of this small pool of people in a small market. So I do think you're right in what you say there.
Yeah. And I think also, as well as, I think we touched briefly on before about onboarding, but I think onboarding's, you've got to take time on that as well. I think I was looking, it's 50% harder now to join a company because of COVID. So I think it's really important. People have suggested doing sort of a buddy system. So setting the new recruit up with someone inside your business, because in the past you'd go into the office, wouldn't you? And you'd find out where the toilets are, where the canteen is, who you need to speak to about IT. That's not the case now, and it can be quite lonely joining a new company. I know a lot of people have found it really difficult because it's hard to build those relationships. So I think once you've invested all this money and this time in recruiting these people, you really have to look at the onboarding process and stay as close as you can with that person and find out what works for them. Do they want to speak to someone daily, weekly, what they're struggling with, and just stay really, really close. But also not just when you're onboarding, when you've got people in your business, key people that are important for your business to run, communication is so key. Making sure that they're happy, they're engaged. And if they are happy and engaged, they will be productive. And offering that flexibility. Flexibility is so key across companies at the moment. And if you're not offering flexibility, potentially you will lose people, because if someone else rings up, like myself, offering a job where you can work a bit in the office, a bit remotely, as long as you get a good job done, the chances are they will leave for that rather than money.
Do you think going forward, and, there's obviously, we read things in the paper and the press, they talk a lot about, obviously the government are trying to get people back into offices. What do you sense the future will be? Will it be more of a hybrid model?
I definitely think a hybrid model. I think not everyone wants to work from home. People really miss that team environment. But also, I don't think you have to go back to 9 till 5, Dolly Parton, in the office every day. I don't think we need to do that either. I think it's finding out what works for that person. You might have one person that's got young children who just wants to be in the office and can't concentrate at home, whereas somebody else who's got a 2-hour commute who wants to be in the home more. I think it has to be, to work with the business first, it has to be the business has to make profit and do well first. But if they can fit with the business requirements, then flexibility and working with those individuals as well.
No, I think that's right. That makes sense. That really does make sense. It's, we've all experienced something different. And your point is right, is not everyone wants to work from home. It's, it's getting to a point where we're really desperate to meet people again. We're so keen to do that, because you get such a, such great value of kind of connection and talking to people. So completely agree with you there. One of the questions that I just wanted to touch on, what's your overall kind of a strategic approach to recruitment? And we've talked before, and you sort of say planning is important. Planning to succeed is important. So the process of planning with the recruitment process.
Yeah, I think, at the beginning of the year, the financial year, we're coming up to the financial year, be it April, January, wherever your company financial year is, you need to set out your goals and objectives, which company does, don't they? They say how many units they want to sell or what technology they want to sell that year, but also planning the recruitment. So how many heads will they need that year? Because recruitment can take time. So the longer you've got to recruit for a role, the chances are you'll get the better person. But also look at what works for your business. How long does it take you to hire from start to finish? What is your recruitment processes like? Who is doing the interviews? So it's planning it all the way through. And I think if you plan the right people in, obviously there's going to be the odd one where someone leaves. Of course there is. And you just have to be reactive to that situation. But the other roles, you can plan these things in, and you're far more likely to succeed if you do that as well.
Obviously some companies have CEOs who are very technical. Some have CEOs who are very sales driven or financially driven. Do you often think that it's, getting the right people in the mix for the recruitment to help people see what the company stands for and what it represents? And do you recommend sort of a mix of people involved in the recruitment process?
Absolutely, yeah. And make sure sometimes you get someone who's newly been promoted as to a sales manager or something, and they're doing the interview process, but they're not the right person necessarily to be doing the interview. You want to have the person that's going to sell your company the best, and who's going to know those right interview questions to ask, not just asking what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. You want to be finding out about that person. Is that person going to fit with your team culture? What does that person like to do in their spare time? They might love fixing things. And if it's an engineer role, you've got someone who really is in the right role, that they love doing what they're doing. So having the right person that's going to sell your company, asking the right interview questions. And if you feel that person might need a bit of support, bring someone alongside them, a HR professional or sort of senior manager that's done a lot of interviews in the past as well. So just pull alongside them as well.
I notice a few companies, Dorinda, are recruiting using freelancers or rather than permanents. Do you sense this as well? Yeah, Dorinda, do you find that?
Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, no problem at all. Do you sense that people are using freelance or people for short-term contracts at the moment?
Not massively. A lot of companies still want full-time employees, but I do think it's not a bad idea. You're talking before about all the companies getting together, and you'll be gathering some companies together soon. You could have a pool of people who could be used. But you've got so much difficulty because there's NDAs. People might not want someone working from one company to another. So I don't know how you would work with that model. But I purely work on permanent recruitment. And I see a lot of my clients don't necessarily want contractors, but it might be something to use for the future, depending how you would fit in with these NDAs and everything else.
On the note of the kind of the approach, so you just say you tend to go permanent, just so people know the process. How do you typically charge for the recruitment process? Do you do it just as a fee, or do you do it as explain a little bit of that to the people that are listening?
Yeah, I think the best solution you can do is to do a headhunt, really. You can do a contingency search, which is where basically you would pay once someone's joined. And therefore I'd be putting people forward that I'm working with who are actively on the market. But the best way to get the best people for your business is to do a full headhunt. And then I can go and contact everybody that could potentially be suitable for your business. And really, I'll be speaking to maybe even 100 people that I've interviewed, but I will only put forward a select few for you to interview, because it's a timely exercise and you've got your own job to do, whatever that job is, running the business. You don't need to be trawling through thousands of CVs. So it's the time, but also because I speak to people and I can really listen and find out what they are really like as a person, because sometimes you can get a good sense, can't you, after 20 years? I would hope after 20 years of interviewing people.
And I guess you know people out there, you know what companies typically like and what they want. So they may not even know it themselves, but you may be able to see because you've recruited for them. So you'll know the type of profile that they want in terms of the individual.
Yeah, I've had many occasions where I've sent CVs and they've said, they've not done this and they've not done that. So I honestly think you should interview this person, because I've interviewed them. I feel they can add value. Yeah. That's all on their CV, and they have gone into and recruited these people, and they've been promoted and done brilliant jobs. So I think it's about, and this is the problem with CVs and job specs. It shows a snapshot view. I mean, I always encourage, if you're looking for a job, and I was only saying this to somebody recently, if you're looking for a job and you've seen a job spec and think, but I've only done 4 of those 5 things, so I won't apply. Still apply, as long as you feel you can do the job, and you're in the right location, you've got the right skills and you can do the job, apply, because it's a wish list sometimes, a job spec. People aren't expecting them to have done absolutely everything on there. And the same with the candidate CV. They might have not done everything on there, but they can do the job.
Just, Dorinda, for any candidate who's looking and, they're thinking, I want my CV to stand out, or I want my letter to the company to stand out. Is there one secret sauce thing that you say to people to put on their CV, or to the way to position themselves? Do you suggest they should do a short intro paragraph or a letter? What's your suggestion? I
mean, there is CV writers out there, so I'm not a CV writer. No. I do see a lot of CVs. And I would think the thing is to make it as easy to read as possible, so the information literally leaps out of the page. I'd still get CVs that are between 5 and 10 pages long, and nobody's going to read it, unfortunately, and they're going to miss that information. But you should definitely have a paragraph at the top, your profile, that says, I'm an expert in, whatever it is. This is my experience. So someone might read that and then scan the rest, because they've seen that this is what they want to say.
So that's the point I'm trying to understand, is that little profile of yourself, either in the letter or on the CV, is useful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also, if you've got a recommendation or a reference or something, put that at the end as well, because if it could be the case, like I said, for someone recently who's been there 30 years, they've been made redundant, but it's no fault of their own. It's the company are getting rid of the whole line of that management, or the whole of the sales team, or the company's gone bust. Get that person to have who've got a good reference on them, and add that reference, 2-3 line reference at the end that says, because I think that adds weight and adds leverage on you as an individual.
I think you're right. And particularly if those people that are doing the references are recognised people that people know about, and
exactly.
They think, I know him. So I think that's very true, actually. And that whole idea of networking and talking to people, you have to kind of spread your network a bit, don't you? So as you said yourself, references on LinkedIn are useful. lots of things like that, just to kind of add to positioning you in slightly different above everyone else, or in a different way from everyone else. So yeah, that's right. Dorinda, as we come to the sort of end of the conversation, which has been great, thank you very much. It's great to talk to you and also to hear what you're hearing. Is there any final comment you wanted to make, or anything you think about, going forward? What's your sense?
I think if you're a company and you're looking to recruit, then I would definitely advise to act quickly, as we said before. Have a really good, robust recruitment process, and make sure the right people are doing the interviews. And then I think if you're a candidate looking for a job, I think LinkedIn is your best friend.
Sure.
So make sure you're on LinkedIn. Make sure you've got your picture on there, all your dates match your CV, and you're linking with as many people as you can with testimonials and endorsements, because your biggest chance is to get a job through LinkedIn, and then perhaps use a recruiter like myself as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dorinda. It's been good to chat to you, and hope to catch up with you somewhere in the future, wherever that may be, very soon. Let's hope. And it's been good to have a little chat. And if people want to get hold of you, then your email details will be on after the video and on the program. So thank you, Dorinda.
Great, and I'm sorry I'm not there in person for this one. I wish you every success with it. I can't wait till we can have a bigger one and we can all get together again.
Thank you very much, Dorinda. You take care.
And you, thank you.